Welcome everybody, this is the SharePoint Patterns and Practices a special interest group around the general SharePoint development, and this is the bi-weekly sync. So we do have two different special interest groups in the BMP initiative. Let's see if I can actually get the slides moving. The one is around SharePoint framework and JavaScript development, and this is around general SharePoint dev, which is pretty vague actually, but originally this was around the BMP PowerShell, BMP site score, and provisioning stuff, but then we started kind of expanding that terminology. So we have two different community, special interest group community calls, one for SharePoint framework and client-side development, and the second one for all of the other stuff, so to say. So in this course, we might talk about, within this general dev special interest group course, we might talk about provisioning of a SharePoint framework things or provisioning of a modern sites, but we don't deep dive on the actual JavaScript development. So this is more architectural discussion. That's probably the best way of kind of dividing the different special interest group calls. So the whole point of this one is have a discussion around the general SharePoint development topics, like mentioned, go through the latest maybe on the roadmap. I'm quickly going to actually walk that through again, and I will apologize beforehand already, and that there's not that much updates right now, but let's actually go through the slides in a second. AKMS SBBMP community is the link to the tech community, which is a good location for ask questions. Do not send me private Yammer messages or something like that and asking questions from me or hopefully from anybody else from the core team, because we simply don't scale. That's the problem. And AKMS SB Docs for the official documentation. Now, one thing before we go to today's content, today the main presenters will be me, as in Vesa Juvonen from SharePoint Engineering, and also Bert from SharePoint Service Engineering side. We absolutely are open if you want to show something within this course as well. So in the SharePoint framework course or in these courses around provisioning or general SharePoint development. So please ping us if you want to do a live demo or show a technical pattern, what you've done. That's a great opportunity to get visibility and get some feedback on what you're actually doing. So if you're interested in doing that. Obviously contributing in any of our repositories in a GitHub, in the SharePoint organization, one way of contributing and getting involved more closely on the SharePoint community stuff, and then also provide feedback. Today, like mentioned, there will be two main presenters. Well, obviously, we hope, and in these calls, we can actually unmute ourselves and do a quick discussions during the call as well. But there's two kind of two main sections from within the today. Obviously, I'll start with the general announcement and updates, a few familiar slides, and then potentially something new. Then we'll have a discussion on the upcoming PnP provisioning microservice, and this was something which we brainstormed actually yesterday within the PnP core team. We've been chatting around this one with Paolo and Irvin and Bert for a while, and we wanted to actually run this idea through the community. So do we want to spend our time on this one? Would there be a demand for that? And let's have a discussion on that. Not going to open up what it is in detail yet, so let's talk about that one in a second. And then after that, Bert is going to demonstrate updated APIs for modern page handling, and this is around the modern page handling in the sense of creating, exporting them, or applying them. The APIs for the modern page handling has been significantly now improved because Bert has been working on them quite significantly, and things are looking extremely good, let's put it this way. But Bert can actually show that one in practice. So technically, well, let me not steal the thunder from Bert around that one, but it looks super, super promising. And the last topic is around Groupify and modernized scanners. And this is something which, if you're an architect or if your customer or your company is planning to do switching from the classic SharePoint Online experience to the modern experiences, you actually probably want to know what kind of sites you have, which of those sites can be groupified and which can't. Because if you have a unique permission model within your SharePoint Online site collections, you can't simply, you cannot simplistic way groupify your sites, because in groupification, we only have in group associated team sites, we only have owners and members. We do not have additional SharePoint permission groups. So depending again on your setup in SharePoint Online, your team sites or whatever site can be easily groupified or not. And we have great tooling helping you on figuring out your current status on this one, and Bert is going to demonstrate those live later today. Obviously, as you can see, we're more and more investing on making sure that people can easily do modern experiences in SharePoint Online, and we're also highly interested in understanding what are the blockers and what's the missing capabilities in the modern experiences. So what's the missing capability in the communication sites for not actually being able to start using that, except potentially that, hey, but I want to use a custom Seattle.muster, which, by the way, will never happen in the communication sites. Let's be clear on that. Custom branding maybe, but not custom Seattle.muster. Now, let's actually start going on through the material. So, quick update, some familiar slides, which I tend to keep on these calls. I think you had these 2 weeks ago when I was actually in a family vacation, but you luckily had this in the call as well. Just a reminder, AKMS SPDev Docs, our official documentation platform. MSDN will be shut down or locked down. All of our latest documentation is in here. Now, we do know that there are articles which are not quite up to date, but one of the cool things about the new docs.microsoft.com platform is that you can actually report those issues to us using the GitHub. So you can even fix the issues if you find a typo or an issue there, if you have time and you're willing to do that. But the key point, what we're asking people to do is to report those issues to us so we can actually address those issues in an easy way. In the MSDN, this wasn't really that straightforward, even though in MSDN there was some sort of a weird feedbacking mechanism. But to be honest, after spending 4 years in SharePoint engineering, I never knew who's actually getting the feedback links or feedback material. So now we're super open and transparent around how we're getting that information in a GitHub as well. Now, so the second thing related on that one, but also related on the SharePoint Dev in general, is our issue list. So we absolutely understand there might have been people in this call who've been calling our SharePoint Online support as an example and trying to report that there's an issue within this API, it doesn't work like it should be, or SharePoint frameworks, you changed something, Microsoft, it's not working properly. And then unfortunately, our support quite often, or in the past, they officially, that was their role. They actually replied back saying, well, we don't support customizations, which might be completely wrong way understood by you on the other side of the phone, because we absolutely support customizations in SharePoint Online. The SharePoint Online is absolutely a customization platform. So that's a wrong message. And to make this as easy as possible for you to report critical issues to us, we want to open up this GitHub issue list for all of the incoming possible issues. So, and it could be actually even on premises. We want to know if there's any critical issues, or if there's documentation issues, we actually want to track them using this issue list. We are learning as we go through this process, and we need to most likely speed up our internal processes for addressing some of this. But the whole point is that we're at least getting this tracked, and all of the issues which are getting in here are getting actually copied directly to our Visual Studio Online task list, which is a key point. Now, yes, if there's no audio, please restart and rejoin, because apparently I'm guessing that I'm not talking by myself. Well, I'm talking by myself, but hopefully other people can hear what I'm actually saying. Now, but please use AKMS SPDev issue list for reporting any issues, because we want to help you on this journey. Or if you find an issue in the documents, please let us know, and we can then fix the issue in the documentation. Now, quickly before we go to the new stuff, just a quick update on the SPDev roadmap. I've been trying to keep this up to date. Well, the wording is on this particular version is not quite accurate, but just shipped is debatable. So shipped after the September would be the right terminology there, but it's quite a big list which we shipped actually in autumn. We've been trying to get the next update out. There has been, however, some small delays on that one. And the next update, the main update for SharePoint Online, is the support for additional Microsoft Graph scopes and third-party APIs using our new graph well, it's another graph, Azure AD access points. And this is something which is super close to get released, but we still need to do some documentation. We need to do some final testing, and it should be out by end of this month. Originally, it was meant to go out slightly earlier, and we do apologize that that didn't happen. I did update that slide to say early Feb, just in case, but we should get the preview out relatively soon. There's a question on the site designs by Kevin. We will touch that slightly later. It is in the preview status. It's not really meant to be in production usage yet, but in the preview status, you're able to test the site designs as well. Which is actually the next topic. Oh, by the way, on the Hub sites and Hub APIs and Groupify APIs, I cannot give you more precise timing than those right now, even though you can see some of those APIs and PowerShell commandlets already gradually being visible, but they do not yet work because we haven't enabled the capability. Now, coming on Kevin's point, and that was the discussion in the messages, just to reiterate, because in 2 weeks ago we talked about the site design. So, well, I wasn't there, but I know that you guys talked about the site design, and Sean Squire was there, who's a colleague PM of mine, who actually is responsible for the site designs. One of the things what I wanted to be super clear is that the site designs is not replacing BMP provisioning, and BMP provisioning is not actually a competitor for the site designs. So just to kind of let's say make sure that we're on the right same table with this one. Site design is the out-of-the-box default capability. If you go to the SharePoint home and start provisioning stuff, where you can add additional, let's say in quotes, templates there, or site scripts, or what's going to happen when the site is getting provisioned. It is, however, slightly limited from a capability perspective right now when we start to preview. And it will most likely never catch what we have in the BMP provisioning, community-driven BMP provisioning engine, because the BMP provisioning engine is actually quite feature complete. It is pretty much hitting all of the APIs which are available, which is quite cool. So that means that if you have a business requirement which you can't hit with the site designs, you can always extend your provisioning flow by combining the BMP provisioning together with site designs. So you can extend the site design with the BMP for complex scenarios, and that's going to be probably the story in the future as well. So this is not going to go away, and it's going to be kind of a hand in hand as we move along. Sure, in the future, more and more native out-of-the-box functionalities will be supported by the site designs, and that will then reduce the requirement of using third-party Azure-hosted stuff for the BMP provisioning. But the BMP provisioning is, like I said, it is super complex, well, feature-complete capability. So most likely, if you have a complex scenario, you might run into the requirement of using that. Hopefully that did make kind of sense. And also, if you need to use an alternative UI, if you use an alternative processes, then the BMP provisioning is most likely your help, your friend from that perspective. Now, on this BMP provisioning topic and the remote provisioning, obviously, by the way, BMP provisioning isn't the only remote provisioning engine out there. There are other ones as well, but the BMP provisioning, no doubt, is the largest community-driven engine. Now, on this one of the things what we discussed together with the core team pretty recently, we started thinking the fact that we have a challenge. The BMP provisioning engine is being built using CSOM, SharePoint CSOM, SharePoint client-side object model. And the SharePoint client-side object model can only be used in a .NET framework platform or in a Windows platform. And that means if you would like to, for example, do provisioning from JavaScript, or you want to initiate the provisioning from JavaScript, you can't actually do that. Or you need to host the engine somewhere. Or if you would like to, for example, initiate the provisioning from Node.js. Alternatively, we could write the engine in JavaScript, you could write the engine in Node.js, but that seems like a stupid idea, because then we're kind of copy-pasting the same code and a concept across different platforms. And until we have a, let's say, cross-platform support which is doable, it doesn't, writing a one engine which works with all of the different platform, all of the different technologies is not really a viable option yet. Now, so what we were planning to do, and what we were planning to do as a step number one is to actually implement a reusable, in quotes, a starter kit or reusable a solution for you to take advantage, which is a generic example as a web API for enabling the engine to be used. And I'll come back on the .NET Core discussion in a second. So basically give you a super easy way of, and a fully automatic way of hosting a single tenant application in Azure, which you can use as a microservice. So therefore, you can, for example, use an iPad, because iPad has an HTTP communication channel, to apply a template or do something else by hitting that web API, which can be securely executed, and then that one is calling to the SharePoint Online. Somebody might be saying, well, or there might have been a comment already in the IAM window that way, but what if you would actually write the whole thing using .NET Core? The answer is, unfortunately, we really can't, at least for now. The problem for that one is that the .NET Core implementation would actually require us that we would modify the existing implementation to use basically REST APIs. And REST APIs versus CSOM APIs, there's actually differences. And that makes the whole thing actually super difficult. And rewriting the existing engine, which has hundreds of thousands of lines of code, is not actually really that simple deal. Maybe at some point, when we get our REST API status back in line within the SharePoint engineering, and that's not us if I put my engineering hat on, maybe at some point when we get the documented REST APIs and everything else back online. But this way, what I'm showing on the slide here, you would be able to then host one centralized service within your company, and then you would be still able to use Office CLI, you would be able to run the Node.js, JavaScript, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can securely call that web API whenever we get the updated Azure AD support for SharePoint Framework as an example, and initiate the provisioning, and it's up to you then to control the insights and also what templates would be available. The reason why we talk about this one as a single tenant solution is that, well, in the let's say wildest world and in our wildest dream, we would have an unlimited resources in our consumption in the SharePoint PnP, and we would be able to offer this as a multi-tenant solution. That would be super cool, but that would actually cause a legal implication. Plus, if people would be actually starting using that, that might actually cause quite a lot of additional costs. So that's why we're thinking this as a single tenant solution, as a reusable starter kit for you to take advantage and then demonstrate how you can use that from Flow, Azure Function, client-side web parts, whatever, Node.js or iPad, it doesn't really matter. And I've been walking between my office, so I haven't concentrated really on the IAM window, but I can say excellent, and hopefully that was around this idea. But is this something which kind of resonates, and it has there would be a demand for this kind of a thing? So you don't actually personally need to do this, or well, so you can just pull down the source code and you can modify that based on your own business logic. And it could be something as easy as we include the XML templates, serialized provisioning templates inside of the web API web application. You publish that in your client-side web part, only calls the web API, says, hey, apply template to this URL, that ID of the template, done. So you don't actually need to even have the template in the consumer side or in the client side, initial side. You just call the centralized service and say, hey, here's my template. Or there could be multiple APIs or signatures of the applied template. Other one could be that it's actually providing the template which is going to be applied on the SharePoint side. Any kind of, let's see if we can get, I probably might have missed some comments on this one, but is Microsoft Graph about GA, including the authenticated services? Yes, that would actually have. So the Graph HTTP client, or the Graph thing, I think we actually failed on the messaging around that one. There's two sides of that story. There's the additional Microsoft Graph support, which is coming with a integration of the Graph SDK, but there's also Azure AD client, which will give you then the opportunity to secure calling a custom web API, and that is absolutely holy grail of SharePoint Online development. This looks like a similar as BMP Partner Pack, absolutely true, but this is kind of a modernized version of the BMP Partner Pack. We're kind of taking the engine side of the BMP Partner Pack and leaving the UI side for somebody else to, for you to implement. So we're kind of walking away from the UI. Feels like it should be a short-term cap rather than something longer-term. It's pretty simple to pull together service from scratch. Yep, I agree on that. This is not a massive investment from our side, but it would actually then mean that we have a single general reference implementation on this one as well. Being part of Office 365, not fan of hosting locally. Yeah, Chris, I hear you. It would be great to have this as a multi-tenant service, but that's a slightly different, that's a longer discussion. We can't easily get to that one. Perfect clarification. Cool. BMP part of access restaurants. Yes. Cool. Okay. So we wanted to update everybody on that we're planning to do this. So you'll be up to date on the situation on this. I can estimate that we get a first version available, watching the calendar, maybe on the March release of BMP, so within the next month or so, because getting the basic version up and running shouldn't be that difficult. Just have a reference implementation on this. Now, speaking of Azure having trouble when creating an app registration for something, it still fails and not authorized. Give it his granted access. So on Ralph's thing, all of this Azure application and authentication authorization, this is going to be changed whenever we get the improved Graph Azure AD application access token handling out, which is now planned to go out still in this month for preview. And there will be significant changes on that. So you're able to securely call the web API using the authorization of the user in SharePoint Online. And it could be a third-party API or it could be a Graph. But at least for me, that's the holy grail of SharePoint Online development, because as long as you can securely call the web API from client-side Webpart, you have unlimited availabilities, because all of the things what's available in Azure are now open for you in the client-side Webpart, and that's, wow, mind-blowing. Cool. One other thing which I just added 2 minutes before we started this call, and I do know that I need to give some time for Bert as well. Sorry for chatting. Well, this is good stuff and important stuff as well. Now, one of the things what we're looking into from a SharePoint engineering side, addressing as fast as possible, is what's missing from a modern communication sites. And I know that this is kind of a stupid question, because it's like, well, enable publishing sites and have a look what we have in the classic publishing site and make all of those happen in the communication site. I get that. But what would be the most important things around the communication sites which you need to have? If you're raising your hand, well, virtually, and saying, oh, I want to have a custom master page, oh, trust me, that's not going to happen. If you need to have a custom branding with custom widgets in header and footer and layout, yeah, you can actually do that already. The problem might be, though, that people are not familiar how to make those things happen. I'm kind of curious on collecting some of this feedback also. Targeted messages news for groups. So audiences, even though audiences is a kind of a curse word, especially in SharePoint Online, but I get the targeted messages news for groups. Use it in root. That's a good feedback as well. Absolutely one of the most voted user voice entries on what we have. Display templates for modern web parts, so to be able to control the UI rendering of the modern web parts. More placeholders as expected. Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin would like to have that in root as well. Makes sense. There is a BMP for the display templates issue. Well, yes and no, because for the modern web parts, there's no display template support. That's the problem. You can't actually modify the rendering that much. Link events to calendar. Yeah. Yes, Patrick is following up on page template, edit metadata in page, enhanced search web part with a custom rendering option. Thanks, Chris. Metadata in the page, obviously in our radar. Page templates, absolutely understandable. So you want to have a easily startup point for the pages. Ability to hide out-of-the-box navigation. So we can use the top placeholder for custom metadata. That's actually a good one, absolutely. Metadata, hide out of the nav, SVP for calendar event. This is good feedback. This is, and again, we obviously use the user voice as well, but it's good to have a list of comments and ideas also in here. Benoit has absolutely 100% valid comment around the multilingual support. Absolutely agree on that, and it is missing completely. Color background for the sections in the base layout. Hub sites, well, that's coming. I don't know, Ralph, what the ODR means. No, just kidding, just kidding. This is good, good feedback. A better HTML web part. The HTML and script editor web parts and all of that in the modern experiences, that's most likely something which won't be there, because one of the problems of exposing too easily HTML editable UIs is the classic challenge of SharePoint Online. People hurt themselves by killing their sites. But AC has a good point around the full page applications with SharePoint FX. That's number 2 actually in our user voice list right now, so we're looking into absolutely what it means. Ability to set banner, content approval is how to implement that. Yes, good, absolutely understandable. Extend built-in web parts, we'll have more of those, 100 plus 100 for full canvas, yeah. Good feedback. SPFX example cultures, client web part built, yeah. Well, that's the, yes, good point, Patrick. Good follow-up on the sample what Elio has actually done. Full canvas apps, custom search bases, and AC, yes, you have that kind of an impact on people. That's all good. Hero web part, number of boxes, yeah, search bases. Okay, so this is relatively common set of things. So we're looking into more kind of bits and pieces here and there which are missing, and sure, it's kind of, it's understand a lot of this stuff is understandable that is missing. Content search, web part replacement. So essentially how to get this data from using the search engine, well, not a content, yeah, and then render that in a custom way. Absolutely makes sense. Now, one thing what I wanted to quickly run through from a feedback perspective, one of the ideas what we were also having related on the starter kits, because we obviously want to help for you to understand the value and opportunities and what can be done in the modern experiences, because for us in SharePoint Engineering and in Microsoft, the modern experiences is the future, and we want to help you to make this happen. Does it make already sense to create a generic starter kit for modern portals? Because you can actually have a nice header, a nice footer, kind of a starter kit, not in the and this is not meant to compete with anybody's actual implementation, but as a demo which people can use, and they can deploy the SPP KG file and use BMP Provisioning engine to set up a communication site which has, in quotes, a custom branding, and then it can actually demonstrate all of the capabilities which can be done. A lot of stuff. Access to property. We're still, this is probably the list is still from 3 minutes or 5 minutes ago, because Skype is just filling up with the gaps, and we know that there are gaps. That's not the problem. It's just a matter of getting the things addressed. Site property back can be accessed if you enable the script or disable the no script tag, but well, you can read the stuff, but you can't edit them, and there's a reason for that one as well. Brian is commenting generic starter kit would be a disaster. Why is that actually? That's an interesting thing. The whole idea of the starter kit is not to be a starter kit, it's to be a generic demo, so that people understand, hey, oh, this is how I can actually use portal capabilities using the communication sites. So it would be an easily for you, it would most likely make your, in quotes, convincing your management, convincing your colleagues on the, hey, oh, that's cool, I can do Contoso for community sites, and it looks like this. Oh, I wasn't aware that you can actually do all of this stuff. So that's because right now, if we think about our existing SharePoint dev, let's say samples and guidance, what we're having, it's highly concentrated on technical things. It's concentrated on, hey, you can do a Webpart. Hey, there's an API. Hey, you can do a SharePoint Framework extension. But we don't have end-to-end solution which would demonstrate what does it actually all mean if you combine that as a reusable thing. And that's what we're trying to do. Obviously, not compete against anybody, rather have a live demo, a minimum reference solution, which is an open source, but people can pull it down and play around it. And David's comment, easily extendable starter kits, which is useful too. Yeah, yes. Sure. So technically, it's a matter of maybe a wrong choice of a wording. Starter kit could mean different things for different people. Having a reference, simple solution, demo solution to start with, and then we can actually continue forward from there. And then we could actually, whenever we are implementing something, for example, that whenever the hub sites are available, we could actually add that to the engine, to the starter kit, or whatever we want to call that, and then people can say that, oh, this is what I can do. So kind of makes sense. Anyway, so just wanted to some level of a hit. Obviously, hey, do you guys want to have free stuff? No, sure, the answer is yes. So it's kind of understandable why people actually want to have the stuff. But it's good to see some level of a hit. Yes, free beer tomorrow. Good to see some level of a hit on the demand and what's important for people as well. Now let's actually move in to Bert, and so Bert has still plenty of time to go through his stuff. Bert, you were hopefully not expecting more than 30 minutes because you knew that I'm doing an intro and the discussion. So.
I expected on a longer intro, so yeah, 30 minutes more than enough. Yeah. No worries.
See, I changed my habits. Vacations help.
Let me share my screen. I don't have slides, I just have demo.
Yeah. So while Bert is doing that, just a quick intro. So Bert has done an awesome job on improving the support of the modern pages APIs, which is using the managed API code base and the BMP provisioning engine. Well, not BMP provisioning engine necessarily, but managed code. But it's good to actually see what's now possible using that API surface, and then you can figure out what you can do with that within your solutions. And the second thing was to groupify and modernize scanners. I think highly helpful stuff for the people. But take it away, Bert. Let's see.
Yeah, just checking. Can you see the screen?
Well, I can see the demo topics. I don't know if that's what you're actually sharing.
Okay, good. Skype gods finally listened.
Yeah.
Communication side, as I was saying. With a lot of pages, with those nice web parts that you have in communication sites, like for example, let's take this one, Teamwork Champions. It has a page with a banner, and then it has a video web part, and it shows some PowerPoint previews. And there's a lot of these pages showing those nice web parts and content. Here we see the quick links web part pointing to other pages. So there is the site is there, and the question was, we want to apply this to another tenant. And they initially tried to write something themselves. It didn't work. Then they used PnP, and to be honest, they had issues as well. So it didn't work as expected. So we jumped into that and had a look and tried to realize their scenario. And while doing that, we indeed found some issues. There were some shortcomings, especially around tokenization, because like this is a link to a page. To a client-side ASPIX page. Now, this link, for example, is when you look at the detail of the web part, it is an ID pointing to the file. So it's a unique ID pointing to a file in the site pages library. How do you deal with those scenarios? Because the page is not there when you provision it. So, long story short, we did some additional work in the PnP provisioning engine, which will ship in the February release. So next week, Friday or Saturday, Sunday, next weekend, it will get out, and that one will contain this new features. Now let's actually show a little bit of code. So I'm not going to show the actual extraction live because it takes a bit of time, and I already did it before. But I want to quickly show you the code that I did for extraction, because there is something that I want to tell about this. So can you guys, is this clear enough? Maybe like make it a little bit bigger, like this. All right, so this is the extraction code, and scrolling a little bit down first, you see the familiar call, get provisioning template, where you pass in the provisioning template creation information. I think all familiar things for you guys. Now what I did in this case here is adding an accessibility provider. Why? Because we want to export all pages, not just the home page, which is the default behavior, but we want to have all pages, which is a fair ask. So let's quickly jump to that extensibility provider and show you that it actually is not so hard to build. It is a class implementing the iProvisioning extensibility handler interface from PnP. And then you take the extract method and you start writing your content. So in this case, I'm iterating over the pages library and grabbing all the pages and then extracting the pages. Now, for the people that try to write extensibility providers in the past, you might have bumped into the problem that our existing object handlers are internal classes. So you actually can't simply reuse content from the object handler itself. Like in this case, the whole logic to export a client-side page lived in that content in that object handler. And kind of copying all the code over and trying to get it to work in accessibility handler was like, yeah, that doesn't really sound like a good design. So we did some refactoring inside PnP, and essentially the logic to extract the client-side page now is available as in a separate public class in a public method, extract client-side page. So via this approach, you can now very simply extract all the pages of your site. And do more. In this case, it's also extracting a list data, so it shows you how to get some list data. As I said, probably we should get this one out as a PnP sample as well. It's not there at this moment, but once we have the NuGet package out, I think I will wrap this up in a simple sample and share it via the PnP site.
Yep,
so people can have a look at how to build this type of extensibility providers. All right, so when you run this, you get output, you get data. So if you go to cdemo, SIG, it gives you the XML file, which is expected. Let's actually already open that one. And let's do it like this, but you get more. I need to explain a bit more. So when you have a client-side page, let's take a very simple case. You have a client-side page, you have an image on the page, an image Webpart on the client-side page, and that image Webpart points to an image which you just upload to the site assets library, which is the default behavior. If you add an image using the image Webpart, it puts it in the site assets library and references it from there. That scenario is a very common scenario. And with the changes in the engine right now, what will happen is that if you define let's go back over here. If you do this persist branding files equal to true, if you set a flag, what we will try to do is essentially grab all the referenced files. So if a client-side Webpart is pointing to an image or to a PPTX or to any file, and that file lives inside the same site collection, we try to download the file and define it as a file in the PnP template. So you get all the binaries that were referenced here showing up in the export in the PnP template. And the reason we do that is because we want to be able to transfer this to a new tenant. And you don't want to point to a file which lives in another tenant. That obviously doesn't work. So you need to take all dependencies along. And the engine is clever enough now to figure out which files it can take, and it will try to take as many as possible. How does it do that? Maybe I can give let's do it based on an example. Let's look at XML and then we can talk about how it does that. So this is the XML, the PnP template that came from that communication site. It has navigation, extractor navigation. I think that's pretty straightforward. It has lists, so the FAQ list, okay, we did that. I think for the list we used Accessibility Provider to also extract data, so you have the data rows. That's also something fairly easy to do. Let's go over here. It has a site assets list, something that is important to know. A communication site doesn't have a site assets list by default. So if you provision something to a communication site and you want to put something in the site assets library, ensure you also define it as a list instance so that the site assets library gets created before you start populating it with files. Then we have the files. So all the individual assets which you saw here in those folders, you see like here's some PowerPoint files, for example. They are listed here as part of the template. All this is done automatically as part of the extraction. And then finally we get all the pages. So not just one page like you have by default, but we have all the pages here due to that accessibility provider that we used. Now let's zoom in on one of the pages. Let's, for example, take the home page. The home page has a hero webpart and it has a ton of link preview webparts. And if you take the JSON data from one of these, let's do it like this. I will copy it in a separate pane to make it a bit more readable. And let's do Wrap. So what you see here is the Webpart JSON properties, as you've seen that before. But now it's more tokenized. So we have a host URL token, which is a new one. You see site ID encoded, site collection ID encoded, which are new ones. What's the one that I'm looking for? Here, page unique ID encoded. So this is an important one. So when you want to refer to another ASPX page from a webpart, then we will tokenize the link to that other page. So this token will be replaced by the actual ID, the unique ID of the page after creation by the engine. So this allows you to have like this this link preview webpart pointing to a page that's part of the template. And the same, there's also a file unique ID. So similar concept, but then you get a pointer to a file. In the end, we have like we talked about file unique ID, page unique ID, host URL, and those site collection ID encoded tokens. But there's one more token that's not used in this implementation, but there's also a token for the group. So if you extract a model and team site, which has a group connected to it, and you want, for example, use the calendar webpart on a page, the calendar webpart points to the group. So you need to be able to tokenize the group, and for that there's a token as well. So overall, much more tokenization going on.
On that one, because let's be 100% super clear. What you just said related on events means equals as we can export and import events webpart on the modern pages across different sites, and it works. So just being super clear on that.
Yeah. We should be able to import, export
any
all webparts.
Yes.
And if it's not working, let us know. We didn't test each one individually, but if you still have issues with being able to export and import webparts, yeah, let us know. We want to get to a situation where you can simply take a site and clone it and get it out in another tenant.
And on this case, you showed your source site. Were you planning to show how it actually works? Just out of curiosity, because I think it's actually pretty mind-blowing where we are related on modern capabilities. You are truly able to export multiple pages, multiple sites with the web parts, everything else, and it actually works. So this one is going to be released in within
February.
Yeah,
next week, end of next week.
Next Friday or a weekend on, yeah.
Yep. So I will show the source site, but for time, I'm not going to run it. Actually, I just did it before. But essentially, this is the code to apply it. Nothing special again. Basic PnP sorry, not this one. Where is it? Look at. Sorry, here the apply template. This is one, yeah. So here we apply the template to the source site. Source site was in this case SIG demo 1. So living in my tenant. So this, sorry, the source site was Toolkit for Teamwork living in a Microsoft tenant. The target site, to be clear, is SIG demo 1 living in my
different tenant. Yeah,
different tenant, completely different tenant. And if I take that one, which should be this one, you will get a similar site. It's not identical the same, and I'm going to talk about that, but you get the same pages, the same navigation. If I take, for example, here we had that quick links Webpart that shows up. The links to the pages show up in the previewers. These things work. You get pages look the same. There's one noticeable difference, though, and that's something that it's still on our plate to look at, is the page header image configuration. That's not there at this point in time because we haven't built it in the Pages API and we haven't foreseen it in the provisioning schema. Definitely something on the radar to look at for us to improve. But if we would have that in place, then I think we're in a very good state. Then these things just work. The fact that you don't have an image here is because the image wasn't defined in the page header. But so because that's not yet in there. That's kind of the only missing feature that I'm currently aware of. As the only big thing is like the page header images.
Okay.
But it is a pretty good copy. It has all the pages work, all the content is there. The links to the files from the web parts do work. The files are copied. So yeah, the team that asked it was super happy about the results, and I think community and other customers can benefit from it as well.
Yes, and like mentioned already, on next Friday or the weekend, not the upcoming weekend, the following, we'll do the February master release, and at that point, the NuGet in NuGet Gallery related on PnP will be updated. So that will then have the support.
One little thingy before we switch to the other topic. As part of this, you see this navigation popping up here. People that have tried before might have noticed that the navigation handler doesn't work with sites which have no script enabled, like communication site or modern team sites, which is true. But I did some tweaking to it, and now it works. So essentially, if you define navigation, you extract it, you can simply apply it, and it works on a modern site as well. So that's a good thing. And there is someone that should get
Scanning through.
Okay.
Muted. There we go.
All right, thank you, Bessa. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Talking around Groupify. So Groupify is an upcoming feature that allows you to connect an Office 365 group to an existing team site. We will offer that option using the UI. So you get, if you go to Site Actions, you'll see a menu item to drive Groupify. We will allow you to take away that option as well using a tenant setting, because if you're a big company, you don't want individual people groupifying some of the sites, and some of the sites are not groupified. Plus, there might be some things that you have to fix before you groupify your sites. So to support that motion, we built a scanner that will analyze all your site collections and will give you a report telling you like, how good is this site when it comes to Groupify? Does it have blockers? Does it have warnings? And if so, what are the reasons why? What are the warnings? What are the blockers, etc.? And that's part of a scanner. The scanner is called SharePoint Modernization. I didn't call it Groupify because there is more to come. So you will see the scanner evolving with more features, all focused around how to transform from classic to modern. Like Vesta mentioned already today, it's like it's a big push and investment from our side to help you guys be able to use the latest integrators, so in order to help you migrate your classic sites into modern sites. I'm not going to really bore you too much with actual how to run the scanner. I think that's it requires an app-only token or an Azure AD principle, and then you just run it. It's not so hard to run. It gives you 3 reports. of which the modern site scan results is the big one that you want to look at. I'm gonna have a quick look at this one as part of this demo, and then I'll wrap up to give a bit of time for Q&A still. So let's go to the results. So I ran the scan before the meeting and loaded the data in Excel, and this is what you get out of it. The big column that you want to look at is ready for Groupify, yes or no. So let's take the no's. And then you see information about why not. Why is this site? What are the blockers? Obviously, if the site already has a group, so these guys, no need to groupify them, right? They are group connected. Publishing is a blocker for groupify. If you have publishing enabled, we don't recommend you to groupify. And there are certain web templates where we say like, yeah, if you groupify, you will really impact the behavior of the template, assuming you're still using the stock homepage of that particular template, and then these are not recommended to groupify either. Just like blockers, we have warnings. Let me actually zoom in. And these are all documented in the GitHub page. And that link is pasted by someone. Thanks, Raoul. Yeah. So when it comes to warnings, what's important things that you have to be aware of? Modern UI issues. If you have disabled modern UI somehow, yeah, not good, because Groupify does require modern UI because we create a modern homepage for you. So we expect modern to be enabled. Another common thing that might require some work from you is AD group will not be expanded. Essentially, what Groupify will do is will take the current site owners and members and put them in the group owners and members. Now, you might think all good, happy. One little caveat is that an Office 365 group cannot contain another group. So if you have like an AD group granting people permission to your site, in the members, for example, that AD group will not be added to the group. That's not a blocking thing for Groupify because the SharePoint permissions are kind of on top of the group permissions. But if you want to Groupify because you want to use the group to, for example, connect Teams or Planner, and you want to have the same people that use the SharePoint site being able to use Planner or Teams, at that point, this is an issue. And then you need to think about expanding the group, for example, going away from the group and adding individuals. But all in all, this report gives you all the data that you need to assess which other sites are ready for Groupify, which have warnings, which are blockers, and then you can assess the effort that you need to do to be ready to Groupify. As a wrap-up, this is the scanner, which is ready and available for you guys. Please give feedback. As the next step, we will offer bulk Groupify scripts, which includes some of the remediation steps already as part of sample scripts. So there will be support for you to do like a bulk groupification combined with some modernization tasks in one go. So that's the idea behind. That's being developed now and will be available within the coming weeks, I would say, something like that. I think, Vesta, for time's sake, I think that sums up this short Groupify scanner.
Yes. This is not the most super, let's say, mind-blowing from a UI perspective, but this is actually a really, really, really great tool to understand which of your sites can be groupified and which not. Now, the groupification API does not yet exist. We've been showing that quite a few times. Actually, originally already in November, I think in the ESBC timeframe, we actually showed the Groupify first time, the API behavior. But it's coming quite soon, so it's good to have all of this tooling ready for you to take advantage. But I think we can flip quickly back on the slides and close up on things. Philip is saying this is one of the biggest headaches in the standardizing MS groups. It has been the best practice for years to use 80 groups inside of SharePoint groups to avoid ACL health. Yep. Unfortunately, these recommendations go one side to the other side. It's just a story of SharePoint developers and architects, unfortunately.
No, the fact that it is today like this doesn't mean that it will stay like this. So I think there is some work ongoing to improve the scenario.
That's a pretty good way of putting that, Bert. The fact that it's like that today doesn't mean that it's like that tomorrow. Unfortunately, realities of life. So, and obviously, let me share my screen because it's easier that way. I'm going to activate that to show the final slides. But if there's any, well, we have only 1 minute or 2 minutes to go. If there's any ad hoc questions, there's Philip has a PR for core and schema for quick launch on the modern sites. It could be on the February's if you haven't implemented that already. We'll have a look on that one still. We still luckily have time for the February release if we can get that through. Now, if it's a schema modifications are slightly more difficult than that because the schema modifications do require much significant level of a validation. But let's see how that goes. Any other things, quick comments, questions? We're on the final minutes. And 1, 2, out of curiosity, does new PnP site run into issues if existing Office 365 group shares the alias, even if title of the group is different? It is actually, if I remember correctly, it is validating that the alias is there. Now, I think Irvin is still on this call. I can't remember if Irvin, you remember directly. Are we validating the availability of the alias? I think we do. We have an API. We have a method for that.
But I think you can't have two groups with the same alias.
Absolutely, you can.
The alias is used for the email.
What I'm saying is that that new PnP sites would actually throw an exception if we would have a.
I don't think we do actually. Well, you get an exception, but that one is thrown by the server.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not us checking that. Okay.
No. Correct.
Good. Okay. Anyway, we're hitting the hour. My Skype stayed up for the whole recording, which is an exception. Yeah, I think I was able to finally figure out how my Wi-Fi mesh network should be set up. So, but thank you everybody for joining, and thank you everybody for your input. A lot of discussions today, a lot of messaging discussions today. We'll take some of the input what you have. We'll shuffle that and hopefully prioritize things to be moving as fast as possible. And obviously, in SharePoint Engineering, people are highly aware of the discussions what we are having within these calls. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for your input. We'll be coming back with the next SharePoint community call for the SharePoint Dev is on February 8th. If you're interested in SharePoint framework and the client-side development topics, that's on next Thursday at 7 a.m. So that would be the 1st of February. And if you're interested in doing any live demos on these things or anything on a SharePoint Dev, we absolutely welcome them from the community side. So please reach out for me, Bert, Paolo, whoever in the core team, and we'll figure it out where you can demonstrate your stuff. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your input, and let's absolutely stay in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.